Will Luka Doncic and his new commitment to fitness pay off for the Lakers in their hopes to get a championship team on the court? Talk a little bit about that and Luka's motivation and how the Dallas Mavericks could have just awakened a beast. Also, the Warriors have an official offer now to Jonathan Kuminga, and we're going to talk about Benedict Mathurin issuing a warning to the NBA before he takes a huge leap. We'll talk about all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Sir Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today. And Luka Doncic, who's on the cover of Men's Fitness, and a lot's been made over like the last 48 hours in regards to his new, not only how he's transformed his body, but his new commitment now to his conditioning and staying like that. And this is a major thing. Part of the reasoning that Nico Harrison and the Dallas Mavericks used in regards to their trading of Luka Doncic, which was unexpected, was his conditioning. And one thing, if you want to motivate a player, especially a petty player like Luka, is to call him out for something like that. And, on top of going and, seeing one of the biggest gym rats in the league in LeBron James and getting to see how he works out, Luka Doncic himself has talked about like Michael Jordan and and Kobe Bryant and their commitment to fitness and how that's kind of turned some things around for him. Luka is 26 years old. And what Luka has done already consistently in his NBA career, despite at times, not, of course, being the most physically gifted, not gifted, but in shape, that's something that, really could take Luka's game to the next level. Luka's saying this: so every summer I try my best to work on different things. I'm very competitive. This summer was just a little bit different, It kind of motivated me to be even better. Of course, you got traded. You had a franchise in the Dallas Mavericks that were eating out the palm of your hand, that quoted your conditioning as being one of the reasons they decided to move off of you. Yes, that should be some motivation to you to get it done. And I'm not here to say that everything the Dallas Mavericks said was spot on. I don't know. I wasn't there, right? But when you talked about his current routine, 90-minute of morning sessions, combining weight training, agility work, and shooting drills, right? Workouts that are there to, help a lot of what Luka already does pretty well, and his strength at that guard position was there as well. Luka also saying this, just visually, I would say my whole body looks better. Not everything is jumping high. I think I'm very athletic in other stuff, balancing, controlling my body, what I do when I stop, slowing down. So, he's following a gluten-free diet, low-sugar diet. But here's the thing. We can talk about all the ins and outs of the diet and all that type of stuff. But when you hear him say things like MJ and Kobe, they really did a lot in their careers. They sacrificed a lot. Now, with Luka buying in now and being focused on this new physical regimen, the question that a lot of people have is it going to maintain? Is it going to be something that this is great for now, for summer? Maybe this goes back to over the season, stuff like that. We've seen players come in and look, Zion, what was that, last year? The year before? You came in and you finally saw Zion had a neck. And then that turned around and he put the weight right back on, right? You have to keep this on. But I think Luka, being the petty player that he is, and make no mistake about it, Luka is a very petty player. And hearing the things that he heard from the Dallas Mavericks and the thing that came out from staffers and things like that overwards, that is something that he can use as motivation to propel him now in taking his conditioning more seriously. And I'll tell you what, if Luka's been able to do what he's done with bad conditioning, now imagine what Luka now could do. Now, I'm not saying that's going to all of a sudden turn him into some better defender or anything like that. Those concerns are still going to be there. But Luka now kind of buying in and understanding a different level of where he has to take his game to really want to be able to compete in this league. And you have a new franchise in the Lakers that's ready to completely build around you. Everything that the Lakers have done and are trying to do now is about building around Luka, which you can have your conversation on if they've done enough to build around Luka correctly. But Luka, the things that he can control, his conditioning, his workout regimen, those type of things, he's taken very seriously this offseason. And I got to commend Luka as somebody who, just went out there and noticed something and heard all the talk around him and now is doing the things that he can do in his power to solve that. There's a lot to respect about that. Now, will he keep it up? And how does he look now going into next season is going to be the biggest question. This is still a Lakers team that doesn't necessarily have the best roster fit around Luka, but they've done some things that have tried to make it make more sense, right? Around Luka Doncic. And we'll see what happens. And we'll see what the Lakers can end up doing. But we know a lot of what the Lakers are going to do to build around Luka, that's not going to come until the offseason, until next offseason, right? They've done some. They've done more than, for example, what I thought that they would be able to do in one offseason. And, a big question is adding DeAndre Ayton, is he going to be motivated enough by going to the Lakers? Are you having Luka, having LeBron as players that can set him up? Is that going to be enough for DeAndre Ayton to stay motivated? And that's going to be the next real step of a question about Luka, leadership. How much can Luka grow as a leader? He hasn't always been the strongest leader on the court as far as verbal leader, those type of things. He's, done what he needs to do on the court, played at a near MVP level. You can't take that away from him. But the Lakers franchise is going to need that vocality. They're going to need a vocal leader. Can Luka step up into that leadership role somewhat, or how the Lakers going to go out and get that guy? That's the question that's going to be here over that next phase. But I guess we shall see, because if Luka can tap into that leadership and kind of motivate a player like DeAndre Ayton, who's had his own kind of motivation questions around his career, we'll see what that means for the Lakers. We'll see what that means for Luka Doncic. But let me know what you guys think on all of that down below. One of the constant conversations around basketball has been what's going on with the restricted free agents this year. And that's Jonathan Kuminga, Josh Giddey, Cam Thomas. The Athletic even did a poll in which, they talked about, basically polled 16 NBA executives on the situations going around, with those restricted free agents. But apparently, the Golden State Warriors have now made an official offer. The Golden State Warriors' best contract offer to Jonathan Kuminga topped out at 2 years, $40 million, according to sources. And that, Kuminga's representation looked at that and said, yeah, no, we're going to still look to seek out sign and trade opportunities. Reportedly, they're still meeting with the Kings and the Phoenix Suns, who we do know have made official offers. We don't know exactly what those offers are, but there are talk that they've made official offers. And so as this continues to go on, it seems like it could be getting more and more likely that Jonathan Kuminga could take the qualifying offer. In that poll done by The Athletic, right? The results on Kaminga, the answers weighing between 17 and 25 million per season, and he averaged 20.4 million per season. So it looks like through the NBA GMs that were actually polled, they're not that far off from what the Golden State Warriors actually offered to Jonathan Kuminga. And those are 16 front office executives that talked about that. So we'll see what the future holds for Kaminga. The $10 million offer, I know, Kaminga wanted more. Reportedly, he wanted more so, closer to $30 million when it came down to it. This is a former 7th overall pick who's averaged 15 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists last season with that. And while, he has been inconsistently used in Steve Kerr's system, it is what it is. He does not have the role with the Golden State Warriors, and I'm honestly surprised that this thing with the Warriors has gone on as long as what it is. He clearly doesn't fit there. He clearly is not what Steve Kerr wants him to be when it comes down to it either. And, that's going to be the bigger question here on where does this thing end up going at. I think that this is shaped up and headed towards a sign and trade scenario, but then again, every day that goes by doesn't make it more likely or less likely, and the sign and trade happens with some of these teams, right? And that's a question that you have to ask here. But for 2 years, $40 million being the best offer that the Warriors have for Jonathan Kuminga as it stands right now, does raise some questions on how they view Jonathan Kuminga and where his place in this franchise is going to be going forward. And I guess we shall see how it all shakes out. But let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Do you hear that offer of 2 years, $40 million? Is that a fair offer for Jonathan Kuminga, or the Warriors tripping? Is Jonathan Kuminga going to have to just accept less? Do you think that a deal that's out there is going to be the value that he wants? Or is it just comes down to this? Is it that because of his role with the Warriors, it's like, I'm not going to accept only $20 million here, maybe going someplace else where he can be more himself and maximize earnings later down the road because he's going to be able to actually play his game a little bit more, maybe be willing to take less on another team. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. A team that's also looking for a new path forward is the Indiana Pacers, losing Myles Turner in free agency this year, which was kind of unexpected. We know that Tyrese Haliburton is not going to be playing the majority of this season at all. And then it comes down to what this team is going to be next year. Now, I do think this team is going to take several steps back without Turner, without Haliburton, but they do got some players on this roster that are going to be looking to try to make a name for themselves, to show what they can do, the fact how much they can have, and maybe even have their future contracts and things in mind when it all comes down to it. You look at Andrew Nembhard, he's a guy that's definitely going to be looking out. Neesmith can definitely take his game to the next level. Pascal Siakam has kind of been in this position before. He's going to be in it again. You got TJ McConnell, those type of players. What do they bring when it all comes down to it? But one of the players that you have to look at that could be ready to step up into a much larger role is Ben Mathurin, right? And so Ben Mathurin, according to some, had this to say about it. And this comes from VJ Edgecombe, who said this: I was at Eurocamp, I won the MVP or whatnot. After all that, Benedict Mathurin going to come up to me talking about when you're going to get to the league. I'm going to bust your ass. I'm telling you, he ain't even say what's up. He's like, yeah, I'm going to bust your ass, which is great. Pause. I'm like, damn, where's the love at? Ben Mathurin right now is locked in. And Ben Mathurin is a guy that you have to look at next season for the Indiana Pacers and wonder what type of step can Ben Mathurin make. Now, this is a player that's fluctuated between the starting lineup and coming off the bench. Last year, he started a career-high 49 out of 72 games played. And, he averaged 16 points per game. He did that on 45% shooting from the field, 34% shooting from three, second highest totals of his career, 5.3 rebounds, 1 assist per game, right under a steal per game as well. And the question now lays in, is Ben Mathurin a guy that's ready to make that next step for the Pacers next year? And if he is, how good can the Pacers be? I still have the Pacers as a team in the East, if things come together, they still can compete potentially for a play-in spot. Now, who's to know if they want to do that? They got their own first-round pick back. They very well could benefit from not getting into the play-in and risking going into the playoffs, but I don't get the feeling that the Pacers are going to be a team that's going to outwardly tank either. They're going to try to develop these guys. You got Ben Mathurin, who's 23 years old. He just turned 23. He's going to be 23 the entirety of all of next season. This is a guy that really, if you can find out a little bit more on what you have in him, it can help that direction and maybe put him in a position where he's ready when Tyrese Haliburton does come back from injury, following next season. And so that's something that you're going to look out for in him as well. I like Ben Mathurin. I think Ben Mathurin came in with a really good mindset. I think that, when you talked about, LeBron's going to have to show me. That's something he said at the start of his rookie year. And we'll see what happens with Ben Mathurin. But he's a guy that I definitely think you have to look out for. And, we'll see what happens when it comes down to it. You lost Myles Turner. Tyrese Haliburton is going to be gone. And, we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think on all of that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Bye tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.